The chandelier above the dining table sparkled like this was supposed to be a celebration. But the moment I walked in, I knew it wasn't. Every seat was filled. My father sat at the head of the table in a perfectly tailored suit. My uncles watched me too carefully. My aunt avoided eye contact completely. And sitting in front of them, legal documents. My name is Raina Carter. And that night, I learned something painful. Sometimes the people smiling at you are already planning how to take from you. My mother had passed away less than a year earlier. She left behind a successful business, a trust fund, and a legacy she spent her entire life building. But what mattered most wasn't the money. It was the fact that she trusted me to protect it. As I sat down, my father slid the papers closer. "We just think this responsibility is too much for someone your age," he said gently. "Let the family manage it for you." Manage it. Such a polite word for control. For years, I had stayed quiet in that family, stayed respectful, stayed small. But grief changes you, especially when you realize how quickly kindness can turn into entitlement. I looked around the room carefully. Every smile felt rehearsed. Every word sounded prepared. Then I reached into my bag and quietly placed my own folder on the table. And seconds later, another woman walked into the room. My lawyer. The entire atmosphere changed instantly. Because what my family didn't know was that my mother had prepared for this exact moment. She had updated her will before she passed, added legal protections, documented every financial decision, left detailed instructions that ensured no one could pressure me into giving away what she built. My father's confidence disappeared almost immediately. Suddenly, the room became very quiet. And for the first time in my life, I stopped feeling intimidated by people simply because we shared the same last name. The meeting ended quickly after that. No yelling, no dramatic scene. Just truth finally entering a room built on manipulation. That night, I sat alone in my apartment holding one of my mother's letters. Inside, she had written, "Don't let guilt convince you to abandon yourself." I must have read that sentence 20 times, because she understood something before I did. Some people don't mourn your success. They mourn losing access to it. Over the following weeks, the situation escalated. There were angry messages, passive-aggressive social media posts, even legal threats attempting to challenge the will. But this time, I didn't panic. I responded calmly, legally, clearly. And eventually, the court upheld everything my mother had written. Not because I was lucky, but because she spent her life teaching me how to recognize manipulation disguised as family obligation. After the case ended, I finally opened my mother's old safety deposit box. Inside were letters, photographs, and one small flash drive labeled, "For Raina, when you finally choose yourself." I cried harder that day than I had at the funeral. Not from sadness, from understanding. My mother wasn't trying to leave me money. She was trying to leave me freedom. Freedom from guilt. Freedom from emotional control. Freedom from shrinking myself to keep other people comfortable. That realization changed my life. So instead of spending years fighting bitterness, I built something meaningful. I launched a foundation in my mother's name that helps young women access legal guidance, education, and financial support when facing family pressure or emotional manipulation. And slowly, something beautiful happened. Women started sharing their stories about inheritance battles, toxic expectations, being told to stay silent for the family. And every time someone said, "I finally stopped apologizing for protecting myself," I felt my mother's legacy growing stronger. Because real legacy isn't about wealth. It's about what survives after pain. Years later, I stood outside the building that now carries her name, a safe place for women rebuilding their lives. As the sun set behind the city, I realized something quietly powerful. My family thought the inheritance was the treasure, but they were wrong. The real inheritance was the courage my mother gave me to walk away from people who only loved me when I was easy to control. And that courage became the beginning of everything.